Hello, everybody. This is Darla D and Jimmy Z, and this is Darla D over here in Arizona.
And this is Jimmy Z in California. Today we're going to talk about Darla's trip to Lake Havasu and a big Tea Party rally there. That must have been really great.
It was great. It was incredible. We had patriots that came from all over Arizona, Laughlin area, Nevada, Kingman. I mean, it was really a wonderful time and just some great salt of the earth kind of people.
About how many people showed up?
Well, it was a little light as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we had about 500, maybe a little bit more, but it was on a Sunday afternoon, football, church, family day. But unfortunately, that group could only get this facility on that day, so that's the day they had their rally.
If you ask me, 500 is a really good number, because when you have 500 people who are setting aside their Sunday afternoon, there they are, they're concerned about the country, they're coming to a rally, that's really worth it, I think.
Well, it's like I told some of the leaders of the Lake Havasu Tea Party group, because they were disappointed. I said, hey, when you have 500 people show up on a Sunday, these are the real, true, dedicated people who want to do something.
Yep.
So look at it for what it is. And I'm happy. If there were 10 people there, I'd still be happy, because it tells me that there are some people who want to do something. And, it only takes a spark to get a fire going. I've always believed in that philosophy. And, I mean, Grass Fire, Steve Elliott, it was started with that whole idea that it only takes, a small flame to get something going.
When I talk about things like this with groups who gather in the name of patriotism and trying to save the country, it's very much like a church. And there are pastors all over this country, and some of them have congregations of 100 people or 50 people. And every Sunday the pastor shows up, that's his congregation, and God has given him that group of people to pastor. And so when you have 500 people, it's very important to realize that all those people who were there volunteered their time and took whatever they might usually do on a Sunday afternoon, set it aside. We're going to go see the people speak. We're going to be part of this rally. It's very important for those people. Every single one of those people who were there wanted to be there, and they're concerned about the future of this country.
Absolutely. And I had numerous people talk to me about that, and I was really pleased afterwards. I had numerous people come up to me and tell me that they felt that my speech and others, of course, were very inspirational, and that they were going to take measures to get more involved. I spoke about, basically I used the quote from Edmund Burke, who is a philosopher. Mm-hmm. And the quote is, when good men do nothing, the triumph of evil prevails. And, and the second part of that was, will you heed the call? And so my speech was based on when good men and women, I added that, do nothing. And, every day we have patriots that sit on the sidelines, and they're there, they're watching what's going on. They might read some of the articles. They don't always necessarily comment, but they're there. I call them the lurkers on the internet. They're the lurkers. They're there. We know they come to the site. We know they read the articles. We know they listen into the shows, but you never hear from them until there's a win on our side. And then they're out there, woohoo, and they're all excited and telling everyone about this great win that we had that they took no part in creating. The other side of that is when you do nothing, then nothing good will come to you. And so if you are allowing evil to triumph by being idle and on the sidelines, then you become complicit in what the evil are doing. You are allowing yourself to now be grouped the same as them because you're not doing anything to stop them. Now, the question is, how much is considered doing something? That's the question. Mm-hmm. And not all of us can get out and walk a precinct. Not all of us can go to all of our local GOP meetings. Maybe it's work related. Maybe it's family responsibility. Maybe it's lack of money, cars, whatever. Health. There are reasons and things that get in the way of us doing certain things. But I guarantee you, no one can tell me that there's nothing they can do and that be true. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Absolutely, because most everyone has a telephone. You can call your elected representatives locally and federally. You can call your congressman. You can call your senator. And I was going to ask you about this because here in California, I've got 2 senators who are among the most liberal Democrats, Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein. And I've wanted to ask you about this a number of times because if somebody says, like I might get an email from Dick Morris and one of his activism emails, I might see an article at Patriot Action Network that says you need to call your congressman, need to call your senators and tell them to vote yes or no. Now, when I look at my senator, Dianne Feinstein or Barbara Boxer, and I'm thinking my phone call is useless. What is your response to that? Because we know all over the country conservatives have liberal congressmen and liberal Democrat senators. What is their role in that kind of situation?
Right. Well, first of all, if you believe in something strong enough, I think that you should always be an activist for that. You should always advocate for that, regardless of what other people will say about it. And this is one of the things I said this weekend. Look, I've lost friends because of my political position. Mm-hmm. But if they're going to not be my friend because this is my statement and this is my belief system, then they weren't really friends to begin with. These people in office have been elected to be in the position that they're in, and they are to consider all of their constituents. Now, granted, in California and in many other areas like California, there are people that a good number of people from the other side voted for them. But that doesn't discount you as their constituent either. And so they should always hear from you. Even if they don't make that decision, you can't say at the end of the day that you didn't try or that you didn't do everything within your power. We have been given freedom in this country. And one of the freedoms we have is our First Amendment right, which is to address our government. We have that freedom of speech to always address our government. And when we stop exercising that freedom shall be taken from us. So I look at it as this. There were times when I was a kid and I knew that if I asked my mom and dad if I could go to some event or something, they were going to say no. But I asked them anyway, just in case.
Right.
And you can say, well, it's not really the same thing. It is in a way. Even if you know how they're going to vote, they still have to record the result of that phone call. Mm-hmm. They have to record what you were asking and what direction you wanted them to go. If you send them a fax through one of the services like our organization, they have to keep a list of all the faxes and what the position was of that person. This is all part of a record that they have to keep, and all of those have to be shown to that senator every week.
Yeah, they do that with all the emails as well.
Right. Every phone call, every communication from every office that they have, every communication is put into a book, and it's by numbers. They're told this is what the number of calls received on this particular issue. These are the A's and these are the nays. And that way they know what the people are saying. Now, do they care? Do they give a rat's behind about it? Probably not. Some of them don't. But at the same time, if you don't do it, you'll never know, and you're not exercising your right. And that is what our founding fathers died for and lost everything for, was for you to have that right. It's like voting.
You have that right and you have that responsibility. Now, you have the same thing, if you ask me. You got the same thing in Arizona with John McCain, because just on the issue of immigration and amnesty, yes, he's going to vote yes on amnesty. There's no question about it. So do you as a resident of Arizona, not call his office, or like you say, they've got to record all this, and John McCain is thinking about running again in 2016, then those people in Arizona, and they're the majority, who want amnesty not to pass, need to be on the phone and record their opinion with the people who run John McCain's office.
That's the whole thing. You know, if you have a voice, use it. And we still live in a free country enough that we can have a voice. Doesn't mean that you're always going to get your way. And I don't remember at any time in my life that saying what I wanted to do, or when I was a kid, when I was in school, with my parents, at my job, that I could just say what I wanted and automatically it happened for me. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I still speak up because I have a voice. I'm given a right and an opportunity to do so. Just like you could come onto my site and you can say a whole bunch of stuff that we don't agree with, that goes against our site policy, and we have two choices. We either let you say it and we leave it there for you. We can ban you because you don't follow our policies, or we can argue about it all day. But it isn't going to change the fact that you still have the freedom to speak it. We also have the freedom to change that. So here's the whole thing. Use the voice you've been given. And we all have work to do. This is the thing. For example, and this is what I was telling them this weekend. Let's say that you have a senator or you have a representative that you're fine with for re-election. But you know of another state that has a senator who's up for re-election, and you know that that person needs to go, that Democrat needs to go. We'll just throw Harry Reid in there, for example.
All right, yeah.
And you want to help them. How can you help them? Well, there's all of these, the campaign and different groups like the CCC, these different PACs, for example. What they do is they provide phone banking opportunities, and it doesn't cost you a dime that you go to this particular site. They give you all the information and how to make the calls and all that. They give you a script. They tell you what to say. And guess what, folks? You're not calling Democrats. You're not calling people on the left to try to convince them. You're calling like-minded voters.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get the vote out, and they may not be aware, especially on midterm elections and sometimes on people other than president, if they're younger and stuff, they may not know anything about this person. And it's your job to help them. And that's what you can do from home. And it doesn't cost you a penny. It just costs you a little bit of time. And time is something I think we can all sacrifice a little.
And, you know, a lot of people get nervous when they're calling on the phone. But once you make that first phone call, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to see how easy it is. And in terms of contacting your congressman or your senator, some people might be uncomfortable calling on the phone. You can write email. You go to their website, you go to the contact page, fill out the information. And it's all of these emails, like you were saying earlier, all the emails, all the faxes, all the phone calls are logged in. And that senator or that congressman gets a printout each week. And he sees,
and sometimes sooner than that on pressing issues.
Yeah, and so he or she will see, like when there's a big vote coming up and there's a big battle going on, it's probably daily, and he or she sees exactly who is calling in and what the opinions are. And when you get up close to the elections in 2014 or in 2016, these people are going to pay attention, because they want to be reelected. And you might be able to sway someone away from voting, say, for immigration and the amnesty bill.
Yeah, there's a few things that are really important in that. One is that did they hear from you, and did you make it clear to them where you stood? So that way when they do pass it, or if they don't pass it, you'll be able to say, you know what, I wrote to you, I called you, I faxed you, and still you voted against what we wanted. That's important when you are looking at someone for re-election, to use that information. You can say you did something in contacting them and they went against it. The more people that can say that, the better. Those are all positive things. It's like a review. When you work for someone, you get a review for your past 6 months or year with that organization on your job performance. They're working for us. We want to know what their job performance is. And one of the ways we know that is by us staying tuned into the different issues making our phone calls, letters, and faxes to them, and keeping track of how they're voting on those issues. That's really important for when it comes time for re-election, because now we have a good record and now we have a good review of the situation, and we can hold that against them or for them, depending on what's going on.
Now, how did people respond as you were talking about this in Lake Havasu?
Well, one of the things I told them is, I said, look, I don't want to get out and walk my precinct and go knock on people's doors. I don't.
Yeah.
Honest to God, forgive me, but I don't really want to do that either. I don't want to go to the GOP meeting every month. I don't want to make phone calls. But I'm to the point in my life right now, and with what's going on in our country, that I don't have a choice. If I care about my country, I have to do the things I don't want to do. It's kind of like that awful, nasty cough syrup that you hate to take when you're sick.
Yeah.
You got to swallow it. I'm sorry, friends, but this just standing on the sidelines and complaining when things aren't going your way, but not taking any other measures than maybe voting in election every 4 years is not going to get it. And or even just voting, it's not going to get it. We're not going to get there. The only way we're going to get there is if all of us who are well able-bodied people do what we can and make room to do more in our lives. I'm going to have to bite the bullet. I'm going to have to drink that nasty cough syrup, and I'm going to have to get out and walk my precinct, and I'm going to have to get out and become a precinct committeeman and do my job. I have become one. I have to do that. I have a full-time job already, but I have to do this because my country means that much to me. And that's what I asked them today. How much does it really mean to you?
I look at what's happening in America through my parents' eyes. They're both in their late 80s, and they're too old to really put up a big fight at this point. But I can tell, when we get in conversation, especially with my father, and it's really disturbing from his standpoint. He fought in World War II. He fought in Korea, and he's watched this country through the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And he's never seen anything like this. And so for us, I'll speak for myself. I'm in my 50s. God willing, I have a good 30 or 40 years left. Do I want to see this thing continue to go downhill in such a terrible, it's already really disturbing now. I don't want to be 65 and 75 and 85 living in a country that I don't recognize anymore.
Yeah, and the truth is I can't expect every 80-year-old or 85-year-old to get out and do those things, although I do know some can make phone calls.
Sure.
But it's for those of us who are younger and can still do it. It's like I was telling these people today. I said, look, I'm 50. I've had my share of healthcare problems and stuff like that. I said, I know I'm still pretty young, and I'm going to do what I can. And is it stressful? Yes. Is it, out of my comfort zone sometimes? Absolutely. But you know what? It's that important to me because I don't want to lose the freedoms that we have and the sacrifices that have been made up to this point by our military, family members, and our founders and these people. And it's time that people get out from behind the computer. Yes, you can do a lot on the computer. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say you can't, because that's what I do every day. But it's not enough. We have to get out and get face-to-face with people, or phone calls with people. We have to get personal with people. We cannot rely on texting and emailing and, social networking to accomplish all of our goals. It will not work that way. And how do I know that? Because the Obama administration knows that. How do you think he got elected? Well, besides maybe some fraud. But they use the precinct committeeman program. That's what they do. They fill all those slots.
And by the way, they keep it to themselves as well.
They do. They
did not
they don't
make
want
that,
everyone to know.
They did not make that public. I want to ask
and they still haven't.
I want to ask you one more thing about this rally as we close this thing up, because this is very important to me, and I'm almost afraid to ask, but I'm going to go ahead and ask. Were there any young people at the rally?
A few.
Because
maybe that came with parent or grandparent that were teenagers.
How
early 20s. There were maybe a handful.
How are we going to affect young people in junior high, high school, and college? Because if we don't appeal, and I'm not saying you and me, I mean conservatism, and you and I both know some really sharp young people who are conservative spokespeople on the internet, but we have got to get in touch. Excuse me, we've got to get in touch with people who are young. And one thing, I wrote a very passionate email to Rush Limbaugh. You know, Rush has written this book for young people called, very young people, like I think between the ages of 8 and 13, called Rush Revere, and it's about a patriot going back in time to the founding of this nation. And I told Rush, you have got to go on even a short, it doesn't have to be a long one, but you got to go on a tour of some schools, some public schools, and do some speaking, because these kids need to see you. They need to hear from you. He needs to do some reading from the book, and then he could put out a DVD that kind of like a documentary about these schools where he spoke. Because if we don't get the younger generation to understand what is being given up here, then you and I, we're only going to be here a few more decades. And then that younger generation, the country will be in their hands. Are they going to accept what is happening now?
Yeah, a very good question.
And I don't know how we do that, because, you know, I do my internet radio show, and I have a few young people who like to listen to it, but, you know, I'm not going to appeal to a great many people in their teens. They're not going to listen to my show.
Well, right. And I've gone through the same thing with PAN, and I know there's, you know, the Tea Party students group, and there's some different groups out there that have been working to expand their message, you know, to young people and college age people. A lot of it comes, you know, we need more people. We have quite a few young people that are working in the ranks to do that, and what we need to do is support their efforts more, because their efforts will grow by getting the word out. And, you know, we're not necessarily going to be the niche for them, but those, when we do find them, you know, like a Justin Charters, these young people that have a way, and there's some different young people, I can't think of any of the names off the top of my head, that like put out YouTube videos, and they're very clearly, you know, on the right. We need to promote their stuff as much as possible, because their base will grow and their message will grow, and young people are much more inclined to listen to someone that's from their age group than us. So that's really important, that we do our best to promote them and promote their works. And that's something that I've done a lot with PAN, as much as I can, when someone comes along that's young and has a message and seems to find a creative way of getting it out there. I promote them, because I figure if nothing else, all of these people that come to our site are grandparents or parents, and they have kids or grandkids, and so they're going to send it on to them. And that's the best way, you know, that you and I can use our platforms to help them. And every Tea Party group out there needs to do the same thing. And that's one way that it can grow and it can change. And then the other part is just making sure that we find creative ways to share the truth on issues without calling names necessarily, but showing the truth. And, you know, here's what's being said in this particular thing on this particular newscast or whatever. And then here's the facts, and then provide links and information and say, hey, you know, this encourage young people and, you know, college people and, you know, people of all ages to review the truth. And hopefully, you know, we can just a little at a time make a difference.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this segment. Thanks for listening, everybody. It's Darla D and Jimmy Z, and we'll be back next week.
Take care, everyone.
Darla D and Jimmy Z.